Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Gainesville meeting at the Cade Museum. If you're watching on YouTube, please register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. And please remember at this time to silence your cell phone. And now, coming back to the podium, please welcome Tom Collette for our song and pledge.
Thank you, everybody. Let's sing America today. Are you ready? Gordon? My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Now please, with enthusiasm, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom. And now for our invocation, Lori Vidal.
A little sobering start to our meeting here today. I am sorry to have to report the passing of Ann Gay Birch, wife of Dalton Birch. She passed away this Saturday. Services will be at Westminster Presbyterian Church this Thursday, November 16th at 11 a.m. And if you did not know Ann Gay, you missed a special lady. She was a very special person. She was a favorite friend of my wife and myself. I had the privilege of helping Dalton out, filling his pulpit when he was having physical issues and so on. And so we grew rather close to Ann Gay and Dalton. So do remember the family as we come to pray. This is interesting. Our program we have today, Dalton Birch, never missed, and so this family was a big part of Rotary. So let's pray together. The psalmist of old proclaims, "Behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell together in unity." The sense of unity that comes from years of continuity, developed by a focused sense of purpose. We are thankful for the years of consistent focus on our four-way test that has built among us a good and pleasant unity of purpose. Our clear purpose sets us free to make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth, and to serve the Lord with gladness and to come into his presence with singing, because we laugh together. We make joyful noises of laughter and sing together and serve together, driven by a clear sense of purpose. For this history we have developed here, we are thankful. And we meet again joyfully to pursue service above self, I pray, in your creative name. Amen.
Thank you, Lori. You may be seated. At this time, I do ask that guests and visiting Rotarians please remain standing. Matthew will bring the microphone around for introductions.
Yay. Can you hear me? All right. This is my lovely bride of 55 years this weekend. Welcome.
I'm Jim Craig, and I'm pleased to introduce to you Peter Neindorf. Peter and I met under inauspicious circumstances in our middle teens, and we have been able to maintain contact since then. Peter, nice to have you.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. I have Heather Davis. She's also a Rotarian visiting from the Keystone Heights Club. And my other half, not necessarily better, we're equal, we're good. He's amazing, the battalion chief from Nassau County, Jeff Dodd.
Welcome, everyone. And now for our first announcement, Billy Dodd.
Next week is the last week to bring in your donated items for the Sustainable Cambodia auction. We are super excited. Right here I'm holding the Harlem Globetrotters 4-pack and VIP pass, so you might have to outbid me on that. Please bring in your items for this great cause. We have some exciting things, but we need more. Next week is the last day to bring in your items for the auction. So thank you so much for your participation.
Next up, Dwight McKee.
Hey, everybody. Seafood Spectacular, just a few weeks away. Get your tickets. It's a great time to start out the Christmas season. Invite your office friends, your family, make it a party. I know David back there has bought 20 tickets, Mr. Johnson, and for his office. So right over here with Wes, we need to sell tickets. 5 tickets for $250 or $60 a piece. We also have some little mini sponsorship opportunities. So check those out as well. If you have any other questions, please let me know. The last thing is we're gonna have our first cleanup day out at Hatchet Creek this Saturday. We got a truckload of mulch being dumped out there. We're gonna spread it all around, make it all nice and pretty. So come on out and help us, all right? Thank you all.
Thank you, Dwight. Next up, Greg Young.
Thank you, everyone. Well, on the morning of Saturday, December 16th, this Saturday, please join me and fellow Rotarians and other community members for a service project to spruce up downtown Gainesville. Rotarian and City Commissioner Ed Book is leading this initiative he calls Downtown Refresh. This will be an effort to enhance the visual appeal of several blocks in the inner part of the city. Partners include Keep Alachua County Beautiful, the Chamber of Commerce, several of our Gainesville Rotary clubs. At this point, we have 3. We're hoping to get the 4th one on board. And if you could please mark that date down on your calendars, kind of save the date because we have other events before then, but just for future reference. Saturday, December 16th, 8:30 to noon, refreshments afterwards, and snacks, and contact me with any questions, and we hope you can join us for this great community project to serve our community. And one last thing, if I might, in 2 weeks, we have the Service Above Self Award here, so I hope everyone will plan to attend and bring guests. It's our major award presentation we do every year, and I just want to hype it a little bit, so there it is.
Thank you, Greg. And I'm going to continue on with a few announcements, more of a save the date type thing for right after the first of the year, which will be here before we know it. But RLI, it will be January 13th in DeLand. The membership summit will be January 27th at Daytona State College. And then the district conference will be May 3rd and 4th at UNF in Jacksonville. So those are after the first of the year. More information will come, but we just wanted you to put those on your radar. And now for a craft talk, I'd like to bring up Jane Morawski for the introduction.
Hello, everybody. Woo. I am going to keep my remarks brief and am happy to introduce Patrick Dodds for his craft talk. I met him when he was a recovering attorney, and we were both members of the Alachua County Coalition of the Homeless and Hungry. And he started his position right when the pandemic hit, and our world as homeless shelter providers turned upside down. And with wit and humor, he carried us through and helped keep thousands of people housed in our community and I am thankful to call him my friend. So here is Patrick Dodds.
I'm honored to call you one of my friends too, and thank you, Jane, so much. My wife forced me to prepare something for today, so here goes. My name is, in fact, Patrick Dodds. That is true. And long before I began this work, I was a young man in Miami, dreaming of playing center field for the Florida Marlins. But when it became clear that baseball was not in the cards for me, I decided to pursue law. A journey that took me through the hallowed halls of the University of Florida, and then on to the University of Kansas School of Law, where in a failed attempt to get back in touch with my ancestral roots, I studied agricultural law with the hope of one day taking over my family farm in a small, desolate town in southeast Kansas, aptly named Independence. But the pastoral life was not meant to be. And following the sale of my family farm, the prodigal son returned here to Gainesville, where I discovered my true passion, which was serving others. So I started as a homeless outreach worker with Three Rivers Legal Services, out on my bicycle, making my way through the tent cities and building incredible relationships with some of our neighbors. I did take a brief and unfortunate detour into private practice, as Jane mentioned, but later, as a recovering attorney, I did spend 2.5 years as the director of the Homeless Coalition before finally landing in what can only be described as my own personal nonprofit, Shangri-La, which is Bread of the Mighty Food Bank. This is an organization with such a rich history, an incredible reputation, and a clear mission to do good in the community. Because that's what I feel so connected to, is our community, right? This community that we have here. It's a community where we can so easily forge strong connections in a hope to transform our community and make lasting change, which is what drew me to Rotary. It's here that I believe we produce and extract the true value in our lives. And I believe, as Muhammad Ali once said, service to others is the rent we pay for our room here on earth. And unlike your home or your apartment, the rent is never too high, and it's due every single day. So I'm grateful to be here with you all and look forward to building those meaningful connections and making a lasting change with each of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. It's so good to have you as a part of our club. And now, without any further ado, please welcome our president, Linda Reinhardt.
Patrick, thank you for joining our club and doing your craft talk, and I'd like to present you with your 4-way test plaque to recognize you for completing this step in your membership. Thank you. Okay, we had a great board meeting last night. One of the exciting things is that we approved membership for 4 new members. So our club continues to grow. First of all, I'd like to recognize Morgan Burns, who was sponsored by Maggie and, I didn't write it down, Maggie, who did you sponsor Morgan Burns with? Richard Allen, thank you. Thank you, Colleen, for paying closer attention to my notes than I do. It's a great sign of a great sergeant of arms. Philip Crutchfield, Philip, did you make it today? Philip's back in the back over here. Carlos Matsu. Carlos, did you make it today? And Bill Martin. And yes, I did talk to Bill this morning, so fantastic. So we're glad to, and many of you may remember Bill was a member of our club many years ago. He transferred to the Chiefland Club, and now he is coming back. So we're happy to have him as well. So that's we're very excited to be growing by 4 new members. Now I'd like to move on, and we're going to recognize our members who have achieved their Paul Harris Fellow +1. That means that they have given at least $2,000 to the foundation over the last several years. So I'd begin by asking Colleen Keene to come up and get her pin. We also have Stacy Scott. Yep. Brendan Shortley. Lori Vidal. And last but certainly not least, Naomi Williams. Great. Let's have another round of applause for this fantastic achievement. Thank you, guys. Oh, wait, hold on. We got a photographer here. You getting a? Come on. Okay. Thank you guys again very much, and congratulations. Okay, now let's go on to the show. I'd like to bring up our very own John Gregory to kick off our presentation. He can introduce his fellow presenters once he's up here, but let's hear about how wonderful our club is. Thank you, John.
I know you're all waiting for a poem. We're going to show the history of Gainesville here in our club. In giving this presentation, we hope that you'll find much of our history to be things you didn't know about. The history of the Rotary Club will be given in 3 parts. The first part, early years, will be by Parker Lawrence. The second part, the presidents, will be presented by me. And the third part will be given by Margaret Combs on the events of our Rotary Club. And Danny Alvarez, where'd he go? Oh, okay. Danny, you're presenting the slides for our presentation. Okay. Parker, you may begin.
Thank you, John. And looking around today, I see that this may not be new for a lot of people in the room that are here today, but the Rotary Club has always had a lot of paraphernalia, memorabilia, and some time ago, a historian was informally appointed, and that office has been held by numerous people. But we used to have a club manual that would be given out every year. It was written. It had a little bit of synopsis of things that had happened in recent years, and it would have the plans for the future. We had a weekly written club bulletin, and there were lots of other things that we had to keep our history. But with the digital age and the way it's gone, the club, and also we had our 100-year anniversary, the board thought it might be a good idea to start making a more permanent record of what we were doing and what we have done. So the history committee came about. And I have to see where the slides are. Okay, there we are. The early years. And well, that's not quite, oh, there's the application. Okay. Our club application was submitted in May of 1918, and our club was sponsored by the Rotary Club of Jacksonville. Some of the stuff that you don't know what to do with is it was always passed along that the reason Jacksonville was one of the earliest clubs to be founded in Rotary was because Paul Harris had a lady friend that resided in Jacksonville, and he'd come to visit. So I don't know if we can actually write that in the history. I don't know. But, you know, at any rate, it's to be noted there, let's go back a minute. I was just going to point out a few things that are there. The president of the club was Dr. A.A. Murphy, and there were 10,000 people in the city that we were going to meet weekly at the White House. There was a hotel White House at 12:30 in the afternoon. There were like I said, 10,000 people in the city. There were 75 stores and 10 manufacturing plants in the city at that time, and that was all information they wanted on the application. So we have a little bit of Gainesville history there. And the Hotel White House is shown here. It was on Main Street, and we can go now to the picture of what Main Street looked like in 1918. And the train ran up and down Main Street. I believe that's a passenger train. Those look like passenger cars attached to the engine. And as a child, I was told that the train would stop at noon. The train coming through would stop at noon. The passengers would get off and go into the hotel and eat lunch, come back and get on the train, and it would continue on its way. So that's what went on back in 1918. And also, this is just a street scene of Gainesville. I don't know where Liberty Street would be today. It sort of looks like the Baptist church there on the right, but there were very few paved streets in Gainesville until for a long time, and it was still being complained about in the 1950s, but they started a program to get the roads paved. And Gainesville, until 1853, Gainesville was known as Hogtown. So the Chamber of Commerce decided we might change that. Okay, the first president of our club was Dr. Albert Murphy. He was also president of the University of Florida, and he instituted our first club project, which was a Rhodes Scholar Assistance Program. And we don't know exactly when it began or ended, but the idea was to give aspiring college students in the locality some money and assistance in applying toward a Rhodes Scholarship. Another early project, the club decided that we didn't have a community bathing center, and so they helped get Glen Springs established. And if you're not familiar with Glen Springs, it ceased to exist some years ago. It's on 23rd Boulevard, and the Elks Club bought the property, and it's now renamed Elk Springs. And oh yeah, the UF swim team used it until 1930, and of course in 1918 the club sold war bonds for a while. The history committee thought it was important for people to know about the origins of the four-way test, and I find it interesting, but a Rotarian, Herb Taylor, developed it in 1932. He sat down and wrote it for a company he was trying to save. He was like a bankruptcy trustee brought in to turn this chemical company around in Chicago, and he came up with the four-way test and gave it to his employees, and it was immensely acclaimed, and Rotary adopted it in 1943, and subsequently he became a president of RI. Now moving into a little bit into the club programs, one of the first programs that well, not one of the first, but Polio Plus was one of the larger programs we've been involved with, the Rotary program. And until the 1950s, polio was a scourge that we dealt with every summer. And people would stay away from movie theaters or any place where people congregated. But in 1953, Professor Salk developed the vaccine, an oral vaccine with a live virus. And that takes us to E.T. and Bam York. And E.T. was a spectacular Rotarian. I decided I just would leave it for later to explain all the things he did, but he was widely known in international agriculture. He was a chancellor of the state university system. He was interim president of the University of Florida, provost of the agriculture college at the university. And he also was a president of our club and a director of RI. And he was on a committee as part of the international agriculture that he recommended to the board of directors of Rotary International that they start a program to eradicate polio in the world. And initially it was just a goal of raising $2 million throughout Rotary International. Well, the lid blew off. It was not hard to do that all over the world. And so it did turn out that polio was a tougher problem than everybody had thought initially, so it's still ongoing. But at least we're down to 2 countries, and Rotary is still with that. And he also, Bam and E.T. established a service above self award for our club with an endowment, and they also set up a volunteer center, which I'll come back to later, and there's going to be more on those at another point. We overlap. There's just nothing we could do to stop some overlap. Moving on to the Wild Game Feast, the first Wild Game Feast was a cookout at Hatchet Creek which was a different place then. And here's Wes using his electrical engineering degree, and Lee Pinkerson, his grilling culinary skills. And that's sort of the way it started. But the club was trying to get a scholarship house built, and so they sold tickets and had a cookout. And it took 3 years to get the money, but they got the money to build a scholarship house. But it was such a popular thing that they continued it, and it set up a foundation, the Rotary Foundation, the Rotary Clubs of Gainesville Foundation, to involve other Rotary clubs, and now it's a well-oiled machine. It's important to know that Bob Kelly and Bear Archery was the president of Bear Archery, and Fred Bear helped the club get wild game every year. And Bob was a leader in our club, and we subsequently named it Bob Kelly Wild Game Feast. And then after Bob passed away, we had some fish and wildlife people in the club that enabled us to continue to get wild game. But in recent years, we've gone to commercial providers, and we brought in probably one of the better things we did was brought in the East Side Culinary Institute, and we kind of eat more gourmet now than we used to. But I did eat bear claw and moose ribs, and nilgai, which is an African antelope. The Wild Game Feast, of course, every year they have a raffle. Well, this is just a grant here to the SWAG, Southwest Advisory Group. I think Maggie's going to talk more about that later. And then we had the ET and BAM established the Volunteer Center, which in turn had a program every Christmas season called Hope for the Holidays. And the club originally just took the money out of Hyde to make a contribution to Hope for the Holidays. I remember sitting around and we give them $2,500 this year. So somebody came up with the idea, why don't we have a fundraising event for Hope for the Holidays? And that evolved into a program called Oktoberfest. But after 2 years with Angelina the Polka Queena, it was decided we'd make it into a seafood spectacular. And it has grown from there and become quite popular. While the Wild Game Feast is open to the general public, we sell tickets to that. The seafood spectacular is just for the club. We also have an annual lobster fellowship. It's the last 15 years has been held on the edge of Payne's Prairie at the Elliott's home overlooking the prairie. 15 years is a long time, so I think we're going to move it again. It had been in other places. We've had it for some time, but we're going to move it, I think, this year to a new place. And the last thing I'll cover is our annual holiday party. And we've had that forever. It's the week of the holidays, the last meeting of the year, or before the last meeting of the year. The incoming president, that's one of the first things they get to organize is the holiday party. Usually have entertainment from the university or a high school. And Santa Claus was there from the beginning. It was Var Heil, and then Jim Craig took over for, I don't know, 15 years or so. We're still trying to track down a lot of things, like did the club ever have a charter, itself. We have the application, so we're going to, be checking with RI, and we're going to find a picture of Santa Claus eventually. But here we've provided Malcolm King dressed up as a Christmas tree. And with that, I'll turn it over to John to talk more about the presidents.
I will take over the you want to turn it down? Thank you. I will take over the presidents now. You want to show the next slide? Thank you very much. We have written 106 presidents from our Rotary Club. Each one will be seen like this one. There it is. Let me break it down for you. Okay, show the next slide. It says here we have the years, the name, and the individual's picture. After this, we have a scene that we assume they have seen during the year. We have a picture of you at Florida Field here. We also presented Rotary events that were featured in their presidency. Here we have Rotary Club continued to sell World War I bonds, and Newell Hall was dedicated at the University of Florida. For non-Rotary events, we have the Tin Can Tourist Camp here in Gainesville. This was a place where tourists could stay as they were heading south of Gainesville because they couldn't afford to stay in a hotel because it was only open to rich people, and where only the rich people could stay. Then, if there was no picture of the president, we simply showed the years he was president and the name, but there was no picture, so we actually wrote that as well. If there are no Rotary events, then we actually left a blank there. Well, we're hopeful that somebody's going to be able to fill that in for us. But there was always a non-Rotary event. And here we have tung oil trees near Gainesville. Everybody know what a tung oil tree is? Yeah, okay. Tung oil tree nuts were used to produce oil to make paint and varnish. Obviously, since that time of use, scientists have made tung nut oil from chemicals, and therefore our tung nut oil is no longer used. Then since 1985 and later, we have this slide showing the Wild Game Feast shirt that was given out at the event. And then we have Mary Kate Walker and the year she was president, and a picture of the Wild Game Feast shirt for that year. Since the Wild Game Feast is in March, we have the later year for her to be able to be recognized as the shirt. Under Rotary events, we have the Rebuilding Committee meeting for the first time. You will be able to see a complete description of the Rotary Committee from under Margaret's section. Then under non-Rotary events, we have UF Century Tower, which is something that Mary Kate would have seen that was not associated with Rotary. I started finding the days of things that happened in the world. Look in the newspaper and find out, what was going on. Then I thought about pictures from Gainesville. Here are several that I found. Here's one from the Eat More Bread, which is one of the bakeries that existed in 1918. Then there was the Dutton House, which is still in existence as a bed and breakfast. The Elks Clubhouse is then pictured, and it was a wonderful house to be. This one has burnt down, but they have actually gone to another setting. Then there was the Burkham Motor Company, which was here, selling Studebakers, as a matter of fact. The 31st Street wall was there at the city hall, and a picture of the Thomas Center. And then, of course, we had an aerial shot of the UF campus, a street scene in front of the Hippodrome, the Bullwater Springs that provided water for the University of Florida free. They came down from Tallahassee in order to be able to meet here for free. Oh, it's the water for free. And then there's an aerial shot of Gainesville. There are many more that you'll see in the 106 Presidents pages. Now it's time for Margaret to come and talk about the events.
We've had a great 3 years, finding out as much as we could about the history of this club. And trust me, we've only maybe breached the surface a bit. But I'm going to talk a little bit about our club specifically, and there are so many things we couldn't cover all of them, so we've selected just a few. Then about what we do in the community, and then most amazing, what we do in the world. So we will talk about just our club first. Now, our club and the impact of our club in this community is significant. And it's something that we should all be very, very proud of. But yet the greatest change came to Rotary and to this club in 1985-86, when women were allowed to be Rotarians. I grew up, my father was a Rotarian. It never occurred to me that I would someday be able to be a Rotarian. I still have the pictures of all the men in town as they came out of their Rotary Club meeting. But we still have in Anne Marie Rogers joined the club in 1988, was a part of the first group of women to join the club, and Anne Marie is still an active member, and we're grateful to have her. Yes. And those women who are sitting in this room, I'm sure most of them feel like I do. We're so glad they made that change because we love our Rotary and what we do here. We talked a little bit about the fishing program. Ed Ellett for years, and I think it's been 15 years. There are a few things we weren't able to hone exactly in on. We think about 15 years, Ed has taken members of our Rotary Club out to fish in the fishing fellowship, and we always see great pictures of these big fish that Ed and his friends have done, and it's a part of our club's fellowship program, and that's been really cool. Then came time that we had to celebrate our 90th anniversary. This club was 90 years old, and we went out to the Rembert farm and had a wonderful day. That one, and if you'll go on to the next one, I love this one because as those of you who have been members of this club recognize, we have a dear, dear friend that we lost in Brent in this picture, and it's something that I cherish. These were special Rotarians, and we had a especially good time. Then 10 years later, that seemed to fly by, we had our 100th anniversary, and that's really pretty remarkable. And we kind of merged our celebration into a Valentine's Day dance. It kind of all worked together. I wish it was a more lighted picture, but it was a nice, dim place to dance that evening. You've learned some about the Lobster Fest. We all enjoy it. It's something that our club has done that I think is kind of unique. And there are those that don't like seafood, who don't like lobsters, who have had steaks available. But it's a great time, just like the Fishing Fellowship, for members of our club to get together. We do a lot of other things, but we've just kind of tried to hit the highlights. Then what do we do for our community? And this is where this club shines, I think, the most, in looking at our history. Now, we all know about the Wild Game Feast, but what you may not know is what the Wild Game Feast has done. John and I, when we were working on this project 3 years ago, well, actually, it was our 100th anniversary, wasn't it, John? And John put together a map of Alachua County. And the map had pictured on it every place that the Wild Game Feast had donated to, every nonprofit that it had a building project that became the project that the Wild Game Feast would donate proceeds to. I think, and he had them all located, and we went to meet with the editor of the Gainesville Sun because we thought there was a fabulous story there. And we took the map, and it had literally all over Alachua County, there were big red dots where the Wild Game Feast proceeds had helped one of our nonprofits build one of their projects. It was a wonderful map, and we thought we were going to get a wonderful article out of it. Unfortunately, John left the map with the editor. We didn't get much of an article, and we lost the map. But here you can see all of the nonprofits in this town that this club has provided the funds for them to grow and service more people in Gainesville. One of the other things I think we all know from Rotary that is when you honor someone for doing something good, the likelihood is they're going to continue. And we have a project called the Middle School Service Above Self Project, and that's one where there are 7 middle schools, and I've had the good fortune of being able to do it. And one of our members goes to every one of those schools at their graduation period and presents a Service Above Self award to the young person that the faculty feels is the most giving, the one who does the most service above themselves. And we know and we believe and we know that what you honor is often continued, and that's really why we do it. It's a wonderful project. I love every spring to be a part of it. Well, then someone about 2010, we think, there's a little bit of a discussion about what year it started, but about 2010, someone got the idea to do the reading safari. And most of you probably know what it is, but for those of you who are new, let me give a little explanation. Every year, the 3rd grade of one school in the district, the students are taken to the Santa Fe Zoo. And there, with the help of the folks at the zoo, our Rotarian volunteers work with the children reading books. When you come in to the meeting every week, you get to pass by and see pictures. The one thing we know about this that I find is remarkable is that every year, the year after those children have spent with Rotarians at the zoo, the reading scores of that school elevate. We are doing good things, and this is a project I hope we never, ever give up. Now, we talked a little bit last week about the Fisher House, but I'm just going to review it again. The VA here, as you heard last week, one of the largest in the country, and yet there was no place for families of hospitalized veterans to stay. So by 1914, there was a place, because 2014, starting in 2010, this club began raising funds. We raised $1 million, wild game feasts and all sorts of things. Then the Cade Foundation, bless their hearts, where we sit, donated $1 million, and we had $2 million to match the Fisher House's $2 million. And as of 2014, we had a Fisher House at the VA here, and you heard what good it's doing last week. And it's something that I hope this club is very, very proud of. You heard about ET and VAM and the development of the Service Above Self Award. It's an enormous project, and it's one of which we are all very proud, and it's one that we hope will always carry on. A little personal story about E.T. York. You heard about how he has influenced this club, this community, this country, and this world, because he has. He was on that committee that went to Rotary International, and they started the Polio Plus project. Quick personal story. When my husband and I moved here, we didn't know anybody except our daughter, but we went to the Seafood Spectacular and we didn't know any of the other Rotarians. We'd just gotten here, and we were sitting by ourselves eating. And this very nice, handsome couple, older couple, came and sat with us and started talking and spent much of the evening with us. We were brand new. They didn't know us from Adam, and it was E.T. and Vam. They saw a couple sitting alone. So what E.T. and Vam did was not just something for the world, but it was very personal. And I loved them from then on, and think we became good friends, Vam and I particularly. Someone who can see what they can do for the world, but can also see people who are lonely and would like to have a friend, and we were lucky to have him. The rebuilding project you've heard about, let me tell you a little bit about it, and actually Greg can tell you better than I can, but there is a rebuilding project in North Florida, and then there was one in Gainesville, and our Rotary Club, typical, went out and put together a group, and we rebuild a house or rebuild something that needs rebuilding by this group every year. They take a project that Rebuild Gainesville gives them. It's maybe an old lady who needs her roof worked on, or it could be all kinds of things. And I'm really proud that we have that in our club. So I said about our club, about our community, and then about our world, because this club reaches out to the world. It would be terribly redundant for me to talk much about sustainable Cambodia, because you're going to hear more. You haven't heard more, but let me just summarize it for those of you who don't know. Sustainable Cambodia, and we've all heard the story. We all know that the history of the Khmer Rouge and the fact that they devastated the nation of Cambodia. And we have a man here by the name of Richard Allen who isn't here today, and I wish he were, because he saw a need. And that's what Rotarians do. He saw a need, and he saw villages that children had to walk all day to get water and back to bring water to their families. They had no other water, and heaven forbid what kind of water did they bring. They couldn't go to school because they had to provide the water for their families. So Richard said, we can do something about this. And first was providing water wells. And then the children could go to school. There had to be schools. And one of the projects that interested me the most was we all had the opportunity to buy small animals, and those animals then could be bred, and they had to be bred so that the little animals could be given to other families, and they could provide food. And so what was then a project for very poor communities, as you see now, groups of people go every year and they see children being educated. Many now have graduated from college already. They see families who are living well, who farm and have good water. And it's a joy for people to be able to go and see sustainable Cambodia. We're grateful, and please participate week after next in the project. I love the face of the little girl because she shows what's been accomplished. One other project that we wanted to mention briefly, Randy Caton, dentist in our group, took a group 2 places as I understand it, and I had to dig and talk to Randy and talk to some other people to get all the information. But there were 2 projects that started out. They went to Guatemala to do dental work because that was what Randy did. Helen went, and I called her about it, and Helen loaned me this book, and it literally is photographs of people from our club working on projects in Guatemala. Not only were they dental projects, but then they realized they needed water. And of course, where Rotarians see a need, they follow through. So if you look through this book, you'll see what they did in Guatemala for a couple of years. Then, after the Whitakers, Betsy having been a member, moved to, I want to pronounce this name properly, Chapala, Mexico. The club began doing dental projects in Chapala. And we still send supplies and things that are needed to that Mexican community. We keep reaching the world in different ways, and for that we're so grateful. We talked about Polio Plus, and we talked about the fact that it started basically in 1978, and we know where it's gone, and we've gone, I believe now the figure is 9 cases worldwide. It's an amazing project, and Rotary, with the help of others who have funded it, have changed the world, because polio, which made COVID look like an easy disease, is now almost non-existent, and we hope in a short time it will be. Finally, we have since 1929 had a project called the Rotary Youth Exchange. Again, the belief that if people get to know each other in other parts of the world, that it will help in understanding and it will help with peace in the world. And so young people there began to be, between Rotary clubs, the sponsorship of young people to go to other places in the world. It's an extraordinary program. It's one of which I'm very proud to have participated a good deal. We used to have about 60 in our district, 60 kids from other places in the world in our district, and we'd send out about 60. Now, COVID obviously changed that, but I'm sure it's going to regenerate, because they come back to this country not only speaking another language fluently, but with a whole different view of the world, and how lucky we are to participate in that and have for many, many years. I guess the fact is that these students learn about life in America. They come from potentially 128 countries, and over 9,000 students participate a year. The objective being that someday, by knowing each other, it will help bring peace. Do you all have any questions? We have, I think, about a minute or two of any of us on the history committee.
Thank you very much. My name is Bill. I got my man bag right here. If I've given you a 3x5 card, send me a love letter and put it in the man bag. 50 years is a long time to be a member, and we want to recognize that guy. So he's back here, so he probably doesn't know what I'm talking about, but if you didn't get a 3x5 card, come get one. Thank you.
We have a question on Zoom while we're waiting here for a second. You mentioned, I don't know who this would be to answer this, but you mentioned diversity in the club, including women. Mia Jones on Zoom asks you, when did the club start to diversify, including women, people of color, etc., or was it always diverse?
1985. Women, 1985 is when they were first allowed. I don't think there was ever an issue of color that I'm aware of, one way or the other. It was, if you wanted to come and you were a male, that was what mattered.
And I just want to say, I know we're out of time. You guys have worked on this diligently for a while. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you for your help. Gosh.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Greg said. Yes, this has been a labor of love for for our history committee, and they have done a tremendous job trying to capture our club history. And as you can see, this was just a brief snapshot of all that our club has accomplished over the last 105 years. If you're not aware, we do have an archive of our items at the Matheson Museum. We are going to be looking for somebody to help out over there to catalog and organize our items, and then hopefully we can share some of those with you guys as well. For next week, just want to remind everybody, our speaker next week is our very own Jacob Atem. He's going to be bringing us up to speed on what's happening over in the South Sudan with the projects that we've been funding and what he's been working on with that. For our quote of the day, the more you know about the past, the better prepared you are for the future. And that's Theodore Roosevelt. Finally, our Rotary Reading Safari drawing. The number today is 660. 660. With that, our meeting is adjourned.